It has been a long time coming, but finally, Gears of War 5 is here, as it's known now, Gears 5. I've played the game frontwards and backwards, completed everything that I could think of, and I wanted to take some time right now and talk with you about the ending, what actually happened in it, and where I think the series could be going for Gears 6 or any possible DLCs.
It'll be fine, huh?
What? This is fine!
I want to start with some of the background that was put into place in the events of Gears 5. We discover very early on from Niles Sampson, the AI construct, who you may recall from the previous games, what the origin of the Swarm and the Locusts really were, some of which we already knew, but we're going to go through it again. Basically, we learned that sires were created as humans that were exposed to emulsion. Niles then was tasked by the governments at the time to cure children with the disease they called rust lung. He discovered that one of the miner's children had the ability to resist the disease, resist emulsion, and that allowed her to not get sick, to not age, and have a mutation which led to an eventual control of these sort of genetic subspecies. One of those subspecies was created and known as the Locust. And I'll let Niles take it from here.
Please, go ahead. That, of course, is Mira, or as you know her, Queen Mira.
You bred her with the sires?
Nothing so monstrous. Her stem cells, however, were delightfully complementary to sire DNA. But we underestimated so much. Young Mira's strong maternal feelings, for instance.
Let me guess. She led her children to slaughter you all.
No. Well, yes. But I meant her more traditional maternal feelings for her daughter, little Reyna. Your mother.
What?
With this bombshell discovery, we now know that our hero Kate is in fact the granddaughter of the big baddie Mira. She has the same cellular connection to the Locust, which has now been transformed into the Swarm. It turns out that her mom Reyna isn't dead and now has adapted into kind of a new queen, and it's our job to kill her. This leads us to a multi-hour quest sliding around the sand dunes to find Hammer of Dawn beacons, fire some rockets in the sky, and eventually use them on the new queen. Unfortunately, as most plans do, it goes awry. Reyna's horde finds the main cog settlement and begins to attack. Eventually, she even shows her face and forces Kate to make a kind of hamstrung choice, in my opinion, between saving either JD, the son of Marcus, or Del, the cool nice guy who's been nice to Kate for this last 15 hours. Both choices really have little to do with the main ending, but could mean something for DLCs or, the next game in the series. From there, Reyna does escape. We kill a big kraken, and thanks to Jack focusing the Hammer of Dawn signal, he sacrifices his own life, and the hunt continues. So my biggest issue with this sequence of events is the irrelevancy that this has basically cast on everything that we've done in the previous 15 hours of the game. We had a plan originally to make sure the Hammer of Dawn works and to kill this threat. That didn't happen. The beacons that we did have, that we spend hours trying to get to in some really cloistered and not very fun Soviet-inspired space constructs, are now all gone. It leaves us with the same problem we had before, a Hammer of Dawn that cannot be focused and an enemy that we haven't reached. It just feels really incomplete, especially because so much of the game was about trying to identify this threat, which we now are more aware of, and killing it. That was always the directive. Most of what happened in the last 6 or 7 hours of your experience really shouldn't have even happened. It didn't add anything to where we are now. I really despise these kind of cliffhanger endings. The only thing that I think could be interesting is what they do with that choice. If you let JD die, if you let Del die, How will that affect the subsequent story? Will we actually be able to use those, save games for the next iteration and have a different story? This game did a lot of things differently. It tried to explore with themes of loss and mutilation and trying to find your home in, I think, interesting ways, but ultimately still attached to that same juvenile way of trying to tell stories. There's dick jokes in the same atmosphere where we just learned that he did tests on children, Niall Sampson. So tonally, there's a lot of problems with this game, but the ending for me felt especially underwhelming. This was just random by every circumstance that you could speak to, that Reyna arrived there, that the big bad guy we were supposed to find out just happened upon our doorstep, and we got to kill an enemy that we fought earlier in the game. I think it was a really, really big misstep. I think the choice seemed pretty hamstrung, and I think it does a disservice to a very strong, I would say, 5 or 6 hours of the game that happened earlier in Acts 1 and 2 and parts of 3. I think were very, very strong and established kind of a new tone, tried to play with those sort of themes. Unfortunately, I don't think it really captures what these stories are. Like, we didn't want a cliffhanger ending. Let's complete the actions that we spent so long trying to complete. We spent hours and hours putting together that fucking rocket every which way to make sure that there would be the satellites and the beacons, and it was so tedious, all to be left with this sort of underwhelming feeling, and that's not something I expected from Gears of War. If you've played the ending, if you've experienced the story, I want to know what you have to say. Maybe this is, again, me not understanding the tonal pace that this game kind of has, but I do think that they made some mistakes, and it's a shame because it was interesting and it could have ended in an interesting way, and I just don't think it did.